The other compare and contrast that's interesting to do with this book is looking at Camelot versus the other world. So we have these two places, Camelot, the other world. Well, when I want to compare two things, I go to my Venn diagram. So here in the green circle, I have Camelot from the beginning of the story. I'm not looking at Camelot at the end of the story, just at Camelot from the beginning of the story. And in the orange circle, I'm putting the other world, what it looks like on the surface. Later, I'm going to talk about the other world when we look below the surface, when we look deeper. But this orange pair, this orange circle is when we look on the surface, kind of their first view of the other world. So let's look first at Camelot from the beginning of the story. Shades of gray and white, okay, the colors. Meanwhile, over in the other world, there were green meadows. The musicians were wearing colorful clothing. Okay, so there was more color in the other world. In Camelot, it was winter. Everything was frozen. It kind of seemed lifeless. The plants weren't growing, right? In winter, the leaves have fallen off the trees, so the branches are bare. We don't see the growth of leaves on the trees in the winter. Everything just is kind of frozen in time, just waiting for spring where things will start to grow again. Meanwhile, in the other world, it was, I think, spring or summer because there were colorful flowers, there was the growth of leaves, warm sunlight. Over in Camelot, steep cliffs, craggy mountains, icy fields. The temperature felt cold, it was damp, it was drafty. In the other world, it was warm. In Camelot, it was dark and foggy. And, you know, it really seemed like without hope. You know, that was the sense we had in Camelot. Just, you know, it was more colorless, right? Not a lot of bright colors, just a lot of gray and white and black and dark colors. In the other world, we had green, we had colorful flowers, warm sunlight, the leaves were growing. Even looking at the skin, the surface of the dancers who reminded me of fairies, they had gold and glittery skin. The musicians were wearing colorful clothing. So just on the surface, from what we can see with our eyes and feel, these two places looked very different. What would be the same is that Jack and Annie were in both places. So now that we have this information on our Venn diagram, we can kind of use our Venn diagram to just start doing some thinking, getting organized, seeing the difference between things. So here on the Venn diagram, we are getting an idea of how these two places look different on the surface. But is the other world really that great? Or is it an illusion? An illusion is a word we often use with a magician who does a magic trick. When a magician does a magic trick, there's a trick. Now, if we're watching it, we might not know the trick. And so we might think, wow, how did he do that? It's magic. But actually, it was a trick. It was an illusion. An illusion is when what we think that we see with our eyes is actually different from what really happens. So to answer this question, let's look at some of the other things that happen in the other world. 3 in particular. Okay, up here in purple, says when they are dancing in the circle of fairies, Jack experiences a feeling of great joy and happiness. His spirits soar. Do you remember we talked about when your spirits are soaring, you just feel so much hope and joy and great feelings. But at the cost of, think about the price that Jack paid for feeling that joy. You would lose your memory, stop remembering why you're there, stop thinking, Don't ask why or how or any other question. Stop being cautious. Stop having fears, which might sound good, but do some fears allow us to use our gift of reasoning, of being cautious and wise? Stop caring. And don't want to stop dancing. You're feeling a mindless joy. It's not really involving your mind. Your mind is where you do thinking, but there is no thinking. Jack was doing no thinking. His mind became a blur. Well, is this really joy? I mean, think about what we know about Jack, right? Jack really stopped being Jack because he could not remember why he was there. So he lost his memory. He couldn't think. He couldn't ask questions. He couldn't be cautious or careful. He didn't care about anything. And his mind became a blur. And do you remember also his glasses fell off? Let's think about that for a minute. The author really used this well to talk about blurred vision and thinking and clear vision and thinking. So when Jack's glasses fell off, he had blurred vision, okay? So what could he not see? Well, he could not clearly see what happened to the 3 knights. It also said that his mind became a blur. That means his thinking was not clear. He couldn't think. He actually couldn't think about anything. It almost seemed to me like he was addicted to that mindless feeling. He just wanted more of it. He couldn't stop. In fact, he didn't realize it was an illusion, that it wasn't real. And he couldn't seem to stop without help. He really needed Annie to know how to help him, which she did, right? By saying, think of Morgan. When he put his glasses back on, then he could see clearly. And when you can see clearly, then he could see that the knights looked tired and sick. They had long, scraggly beards, bony and pale faces, eyes staring wildly, lips frozen in ghostly smiles. Those are the words from the story. That's how those 3 knights looked after having been stuck in that mindless dance for so long. And Jack hadn't been able to see that with his glasses off, but when he put his glasses back on and could see what happened to those 3 knights, he was able to realize that the joy is an illusion and that he had to break free from it. So when we talk about blurred or clear, which are opposites, we can be talking about literally what we see with our eyes. My glasses are on, so I can see clearly. If I take my glasses off, then everything is a blur. But we can also talk about our mind. And can we think clearly about things? Or can we say our mind was a blur, which means I just wasn't thinking at all. I was just feeling, but with no thinking involved. So that was the first one. The joy that they were feeling when they were dancing is an illusion. It depends on being mindless, which means no thinking and no memories, right? Our mind is what has our memories. The fairies might look gold and glittery on the outside, really pretty, but they express nothing from the inside. They had no expression on their face. They didn't care if Jack and Annie joined the dance or left the dance. Number 2, the Otherworld does have thorns, thickets, and twigs snapping in their face. And number 3, the Otherworld does have monsters or dragons, and they are described as, here's some words from the story, slimy, mud-colored, glowing red eyes, long curled claws, sharp teeth, and a rotten stench. That means they stink. And also, the cave appeared on the surface to be glittering and sparkling with crystals, light, dancing, beautiful, but hidden inside were the dangerous dragons. So I noticed a lesson here. Things are not always what they appear to be on the surface. They could be an illusion. We need to look deeper. Joy is only meaningful if it is deeper than just on the surface. This last sentence is something that I would call a theme. That means it is something that we can think about in life, and we can think about how it applies to life. A theme is not specific to a story. It's when we can take a little nugget out of it, a little piece of wisdom or useful knowledge or an interesting point, a thoughtful reflection on something, and then apply it to life. That would be a theme. So here, as I thought about the Otherworld, and I thought, those fairies sure looked pretty on the outside, but there really wasn't anything on the inside. The green meadows and the colorful flowers and the sunny sky looked really inviting and nice. But if you went into the woods, it was another story. It was dark and tangled and hard to walk, and twigs snapping at your face and thorns scratching your skin. Now, if you look deeper, it wasn't so inviting. It's hard. And even with the crystal cave, it looked so glittering and sparkling and pretty. But deep inside it were some dragons that weren't so pretty or inviting. They were dangerous. So on the outside, on the surface, things might seem one way, but if we dig deeper, we might find that they're not exactly what they seem on the outside. There's something else deeper in. So what we see on the outside might just be an illusion, not really what we would find if we look deeper. And I thought about how this whole story is about joy, and if you have joy or you don't have joy. And I thought about, when Jack was dancing and he had no memories, no ability to think, probably didn't even really recognize himself or know who he was anymore. I thought, was that really joy? It was mindless. If you have no memories, you don't remember who you care about, you don't remember who cares about you, you don't remember why you're there, you can't think about anything. Is that really joy? And I thought, I think for joy to be meaningful, maybe it needs to be more than just on the surface with gold, glittery skin. So this was a theme I was thinking about, which brings us to our last piece of writing, which is about theme. And this is the hardest one. It takes the most thinking, but it's also one of the most fun things to think about. So here are my thoughts about a theme. I have 3, so we'll take them one at a time. I started by thinking about the water of memory and imagination. This was a big deal in the story. This was what the whole quest was about. Jack and Annie were told that if you get some of that water, it will bring back the joy to Camelot. It will solve the problem. You need to get that water. Very interesting name, right? It's a long name. The name of the water is the water of memory and imagination. So I really started thinking about memory and imagination. Those are both parts of our mind. They happen in our mind. So in our mind, we remember things and we imagine things. We can get ideas about things. Memory and imagination actually are what make us a human being and not just some other animal or a plant, right? They're what's special about being a human. So the water of memory and imagination, it said, tasted sweet, bitter, and spicy. I thought that was really interesting because sweet, bitter, and spicy are all very different. And a bitter taste is not a taste that most people like very much. You don't usually think of things as being both sweet and bitter. And then I thought to myself, not all experiences in life are sweet. Sometimes, so a sweet feeling might be happiness, joy, peace, excitement, the good stuff. But sometimes we feel sad or grieving or disappointed or frustrated or confused or discouraged. Other times we feel hopeful or excited or peaceful or celebratory or thankful. This is life, a range of emotions. It is what makes us human. We can learn from all experiences, the good and the not so good. And we can even cherish memories that come with tough feelings. Being human means we have the gifts of memory, hopefully, and of imagination. We can ask questions, be curious, come up with ideas to solve problems, care about and help others, and be creative. These things bring us joy. With joy, we experience the beauty, light, and love in the world. That is a lot of reflection that I was doing as I was thinking about memory, imagination, having these three different tastes. Okay, second, I thought, in the other world, things were not what they seemed in the other world. Joy seemed to be only an illusion without memory. Okay, if you're not remembering, reflecting, knowing there are people that we care about and who care about us, if there's no imagination, no creative thinking, having one's own ideas, being curious, asking questions, making choices, not always doing the same exact thing that everyone else is doing, maybe that's not really joy. The third thing I thought about was that bravery, resourcefulness, determination, these may be positively impacted by a selfless desire to help others, generosity, compassion, and kindness. There's a lot of big words in there, but I was thinking about how Annie was very brave. She was also very resourceful. Resourceful is when you think about, okay, what do I have available to help me on whatever I'm doing, whatever my mission is, whatever I need to do. What are the things that I have that can help me, that I can use? Determination is just not giving up. It's persevering, saying, I can do this. I believe in myself. I can do this. This can be positively impacted. That means influenced in a good way. So selfless desire to help others means you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about other people more than yourself. You're thinking about how can I help them? That this isn't about me and what I want and helping me, but this is about helping others because I care about others and I want to help them. And if you really care about others and want to help them, you're feeling generous. Means you want to be giving of your time and your skills and your abilities and your those qualities that you have. You want to use them to help others, to give of yourself to others. That's being generous. Compassion is just a kindness and a love for others. So when you want to help others, that motivates you to be more brave, to be more determined that you're not going to give up, to be more resourceful and to think about, this is a tough challenge. This is a tough thing to do, but who can help me? What are my resources? What tools do I have? What friends do I have? What skills do I have? What books can I learn from? What are the things I need to do to accomplish this quest? And what can I use to help me accomplish it? So this was some of the thinking that I've had during the story as we were reading the story. And I just kind of wrote down my thoughts about it. These ideas are kind of about life. And so that's theme. So to plan my writing for theme, I take my graphic organizer, my Foursquare, and I needed to pick one of these. And I decided that I was going to do number 2, that things were not what they seemed in the other world. So here in the middle, I said, things are not always what they appear to be on the surface. We have to look deeper. So then I remembered what I had been thinking about that in the other world. I went back to this slide. So I looked back at this one where I was thinking about the fairies seeming different on the outside than the inside, the going into the woods and the thorns and thickets being different inside the woods than out in the meadows, the crystal cave looking very sparkling on the outside, but having those monsters on the inside. So I took those 3 things and then I connected those to the theme about things not being what they seem. And I have one here for the fairies, one for the woods, and one for the crystal cave. And I called those my 3 illusions. Illusion number 1 in the other world, illusion number 2 in the other world, and illusion number 3 in the other world. So looking at the dance of the fairies, I said, okay, they appeared gold and glittery on the outside, but had no expression. The feeling of joy seemed mindless. If there's no mind, remember, less means you don't have it without it. So if you don't have your mind, then you can't have a memory, you can't care about anything, you can't even have a sense of who you are. That's your identity. No sense of identity. This is another meaning of that word sense. We were talking about this in the last video. One of the meanings of sense is a sense of identity, of who you are. The vision blurred when Jack's glasses fell off. The vision blurred, but also the mind became a blur, not able to see without his glasses or think in his mind clearly. Then I looked at the illusion number 2 in the woods. And I noticed, well, the other world appears sunny, green meadows with colorful flowers, but if you go into the woods, there's thorns, thickets, and twigs snapping in the face. And then for illusion number 3, in the crystal cave, it appeared beautiful, okay? When we say appear, when something appears, we're really talking about on the surface, what we see with our eyes when we just look at the surface of it, the outside of it. It appeared beautiful with sparkling crystals and light dancing. But looking deeper inside the cave are hidden the guardians of the cauldron. They are slimy, mud-colored, a rotten stench, sharp teeth, not welcoming, not friendly. And then for a conclusion, this is where I'm really getting into the theme. And with the theme, I'm not talking about the story. I'm not talking about Jack and Annie. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about, from this story, what does it make us think about life? What's a little nugget or lesson we can learn about life? Something that can make us think, yeah, life is kind of like that. Kind of important to remember that. That's a good thing to think of when we look at life. I said, in conclusion, and I remembered the expression, don't judge a book by its cover. And then I said, or a person's joy by the outward appearance of their dancing to music. Joy is likely just an illusion if one is not able to use the deeper gifts of memory and imagination. I really wanted to connect that to the water of memory and imagination. These gifts, and I wanted to call memory and imagination gifts because they're really what make us human. And gifts are something that are given to us, right? They're part of how we're made, but we can choose if we use them or not, right? If someone gives you a gift and you never take it out of the box, then you're not using it. One of the ways we can show that we're thankful for gifts is to open it up and use it. Well, these gifts let us remember those we care about and those who care about us. And that's something really special about life that gives meaning to life. They let us feel a sense of purpose for what we do. They let us come up with our own creative ideas to solve problems and make a positive difference in the lives of others. And they let us make our own choices. This is kind of a long sentence that by using commas, I was able to put three things together. With a comma after the first one, a comma after the second one, the word and then the third one. So you can see here I have, they let us feel a sense of purpose for what we do. They let us come up with our own creative ideas to solve problems and make a positive difference in the lives of others. That's actually two stuck together with and. And then they let us make our own choices. These things here in purple, blue, and green, these are important in life. If we want to feel happy and full of joy in life, we do want to feel a sense of purpose for what we do. Here's another use of that word sense, have a sense of purpose. That's like, why do we do what we do? What's the point? Why is it important to study in school? Like, who cares? Or why is it important to try our best? Who cares? What's our sense of purpose? That gives us the why do we want to do our best. Being able to come up with our own ideas, to use our own imagination and be creative, to be able to solve problems. That gives us a great feeling, a feeling of joy. If we can make a positive difference in the lives of others, that means if we can do something that makes their lives better or makes them happy, that is a really great feeling. Again, it gives us joy when we can help others in some way. Also, to be able to make our own choices and not just do whatever we're told, to not just feel like we have to do what everyone else is doing without even thinking about it, but to be able to use our own mind to think about things, solve problems, make our choices, come up with ideas. These are things that give us joy. It's part of being human. So our foursquare is done, and then we can put it into our 5-paragraph essay. Let me read it, and then we will be all finished. In the Magic Treehouse story, Christmas in Camelot, things are not always what they appear to be on the surface. We have to look deeper. Remember, this essay is on theme. To begin with, Jack and Annie discovered a circle of dancing fairies. This paragraph is about illusion number 1. Illusion means things are not what they seem on the surface. An illusion is kind of like a trick. It can trick us. We might think by what it appears on the surface, what it looks like, we might think that it's one thing, but if we look deeper or figure out the trick, we realize it's something else. And that what we thought we saw, what it appeared to be on the surface, was just an illusion. It's not really that way. Let's see. To begin with, Jack and Annie discovered a circle of dancing fairies in the other world. On the surface, the fairies had glittering gold skin. However, closer inspection showed a complete lack of expression. They didn't care if Jack and Annie joined them or not. While Jack thought he felt joyful when dancing, he stopped caring, thinking, remembering, or questioning. It was a mindless feeling. Now we're going to go to illusion number 2. Also, the initial appearance, that means the very first thing we notice, the very first thing we see of the other world, was one of summer-like joy with sun-drenched green meadows covered with colorful flowers. Doesn't that sound wonderful? It sounds perfect. However, if one looked deeper by entering the woods, thorny thickets barred the way and twigs snapped at one's face. Not so nice after all if you dig deeper and go in. Then we come to illusion number 3, the crystal cave. Additionally, the crystal cave in the other world was, at first glance, that's like the initial appearance, first glance is the first time you see it. Breathtaking in its sparkling beauty. But if one explored more deeply, the disturbing and dangerous dragon-like guardians would turn delight into despair. I had fun using a lot of D's in that sentence. It's an example of alliteration. And then for my conclusion, this is where I can really get into the theme and make my point about life, how I can take all of these examples and kind of connect it to life. In conclusion, don't judge a book by its cover or a person's joy by the outward appearance of their dancing to music. That's a reference to those fairies in this story. So I'm saying that expression we have of don't judge a book by its cover is similar to, in the story, don't assume that someone is full of joy just because they're dancing to music. That means you're only looking on the outside. You're not digging deeper and looking on the inside, or you're not looking deeper. Joy is likely just an illusion if one is not able to use the deeper gifts of memory and imagination. I use this word deeper here because we don't see our mind on the outside of our body, right? Our mind is inside. And so you have to look in. It's not obvious, you can't see what someone's thinking, right? You can just see what's on their face. So the gifts of imagination and memory are in our mind. So those are a deeper so that would be looking deeper. Use the deeper gifts of memory and imagination. These gifts let us remember those we care about and those who care about us. They let us feel a sense of purpose for what we do, let us come up with our own creative ideas to solve problems and make a positive difference in the lives of others, and let us make our own choices. Now, I really kind of felt like I needed one more sentence to kind of bring it to an end, and I stopped. You should not stop just because you get to the end of the page, but I think more for time. But I think that I would want to look at this again and really think about how can I have a good final sentence to my essay. Something else that I've been thinking about as I was writing my introduction was here. I wondered if I should explain what I mean by looking deeper. A thought that I had about that was that if I was going to explain what I mean by looking deeper, I would say that it means that after we observe things on the surface with our senses, we can use critical thinking skills, such as our abilities to analyze, to infer, and to draw conclusions, to help us see what is below the surface, to discover figurative meaning, such as metaphors or symbolism, to find a valuable life lesson or theme, to learn something new. I thought about the definition of an inference. The words aren't spoken or written down. You just have clues, and you have to put the clues together in order to make an inference. Something else I thought about as I was thinking about looking deeper was the idea of digging deeper. And I thought to myself, we also need to dig deep so that we can do the hard things that goals and quests require. Digging deep means finding within ourselves the courage and grit to persevere rather than give up. It's really about saying, I'm tired, but I'm going to finish the race. I'm tired, I'm discouraged, this is so hard. The twigs are snapping at my face, the thorns are scratching my skin, I want to turn around. But it's saying, I can do this. I am not giving up. I will persevere. I am determined. I can do this. That is digging deep, to keep going and to not giving up. Jack had to dig deep to break away from the circle. He really did not want to leave the circle. He wanted to stay there forever and ever and ever. He had to dig deep to break away. He had to think of Morgan, but he needed Annie's help for that suggestion. He and Annie had to show courage and grit to push through the thorny thickets and to fight the dragon-like creatures. So when I thought of each of these examples, which we can see here in the Foursquare, when I thought of these three illusions, I thought, yes, each one of them, we can look deeper to see the illusion, but we can also realize that these are three examples where Jack and Annie had to dig deep in order to persevere and not give up. Jack had to dig deep here in the Dance of the Fairies. In the woods, they had to dig deep and not give up, persevere, keep going. In the Crystal Cave, when they were facing those dragon-like creatures, they had to find the courage and the bravery and the ideas and the resources within them to not give up. So going on a quest or a mission, achieving a goal, it requires us to do hard things and to not give up. So that would have been another way to look at these three ideas that I have here in the green, purple, and orange paragraphs. I chose to look at things are not what they seem, and the illusion of when you only look at the surface and you don't look deeper. But I could have taken these same three examples and talked about digging deep and the importance of not giving up and persevering so that we can accomplish great things. Another theme from this would be the idea of having goals, having things we want to accomplish, and not giving up. I had started to think about that when I was writing this, but then I realized that I was starting to talk about two different themes. Looking deeper and digging deeper were kind of going in two different directions. Using the same examples, both could have been used as themes, but I decided I needed to stick with one. And I also felt that I didn't want to get off too much here. I didn't want to get too off track talking about what does it mean to look deeper. I wanted to kind of focus my writing a little bit more on the story in the green, purple, and orange paragraphs, and then really move into talking about the theme in the concluding paragraph. So, as you can see, I just really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed using both the story map and the Foursquare to think about the story in many different ways. This is called using critical thinking skills, reading comprehension strategies to think about what a story means, and then how we can write about the story in these different ways. This is analytical writing. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and look forward to seeing you in our next book, which is the Minecraft book of Deep Dive. So long, Cheddar Chip.